Welcome to the Self-Liberation Project. I am Nathan Hawken, and with me I have...
Christine Mokotupu. Welcome everyone, thanks for joining.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you guys listening. This is the first podcast that we've done together. We have been thinking about how we're going to collaborate in some way, following some coaching, which Christy did, and what has come out of it is this podcast, which we're planning on doing on a weekly basis. So this is the very first one. So you'll have to forgive us if there's any hiccups or bumps along the way, which there should be, because what we're trying to do is just keep it very natural, very flowing. There's going to be some times where it gets probably pretty raw, or I hope it will, because we're going to be talking about some deep things and helping people think a little bit, but always with a positive outcome at the end. So this is who we are and this is what we're about. And I think to begin with, it might be a good idea if we just, introduce ourselves a little bit for those of you who are listening who don't really know us too well. But I'll pass off to you to begin with, Christy. Tell me more about you.
Thank you, Nathan. Yes, another day in the office for me. For those who don't know, I've been public speaking since 2015 when I shared my story at the Sydney Morning Herald on drug addiction. So I've gone into schools and been sharing my testimony, my profile for many years. But I have moved on from what I've been speaking about into harder topics, and that's why we're here. Or just two more broad aspects of topics. But my background is, I was a 2000 Australian Olympian for volleyball. I managed a drag racing team in the NHRA in America and then also in Australia. I became a Christian I was always born a Catholic, but I started following Christ closely from 30. I became a helicopter pilot, and I went down a healing journey to just heal from trauma and find out who I am. And it's led me to where I am today, which is, I'm a single mum, and just happy overall with everything that I do. I love what I do. I've healed from a lot of things in the past, and now I just love to get out there and to talk about those issues, keeping it real, authentically, and helping others. And I just run my company now, the Wonder Organization, full time, and also my personal Patreon channel where people can follow my life privately, where I keep it real once again. So that's me in a nutshell, much more, but you'll find out on our future podcasts.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I had no idea that you were managing drag racing.
Yes, in my 20s. I was traveling all over the States, so I love America. I know America very well. I lived in Indianapolis, and I pretty much drove all across the States as we have to drive and race everywhere. So I'm the USA is like a second home to me, so I can't wait to fly back again one day.
That's so cool. Yeah, I had no idea, because one thing I noticed when we reconnected after, it was about almost 20 years, one thing I noticed that you had been ticking a few boxes of just things you want to do, like helicopter pilot, now there's drag racing, you're doing philanthropic work, humanitarian work, you've your volleyballing career. You're just, you're someone who certainly likes to be doing things. You've got an interest or something that you want to have a look at. It seems like you just jump straight in.
Yeah, that's me. Everyone knows me like that. Fast-paced.
Are you typically like a rev head in general? Like, do you like cars and things like that?
Yes,
yeah, really?
Yes. I mean, I live very simple now, but in my 20s, I was driving twin-turbo Cayenne Porsches and SL55 AMG cars. I was around drag racing. I went to the Indianapolis races, Formula One. So yes, I love helicopters. I have my boat license. I've ridden motorbikes. So yes, I'm an absolute rev head.
Oh man, that's crazy. So like that is almost the complete opposite from me. Like I never really got into cars or anything. My brother was into cars, like he likes them. My dad liked them. So there's always like that little bit of a disconnect there, but I could never really get into it. But drag racing I just found was just one of those things. It was just, for me, it's very strange. It's like to get a car from here to here so super fast. I personally couldn't get into it, but I find it very fascinating. Like when I look at sports like that, I just find the whole concept of it very fascinating in general.
Yeah, but we are opposites, aren't we, in terms of our personalities? I think that's why we gel so well. I'm fast, you're slow. I'm loud, you're quiet.
Yeah, well, I think that is part of it, because I've I've looked at previous relationships that I've been in the past in my like previous business and things like that, and it's always been that kind of opposite. Because I was doing some work with my old mentor Vaughan back in Australia before I left, and he was very like high energy, fast paced, and I was once again like the opposite, more quiet, a little bit more enclosed. But that dynamic works quite well because you think differently about certain things, and it brings a little bit of a balance to whatever the project is that we're working on.
Definitely a broader aspect for everyone to have a broader base of everything.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting though, and I find this like as I get a little bit older in life, you start to kind of question yourself. You're like, maybe I need to put myself out there more. Maybe I need to be more a high energy or something like that. And I think that's a big part of like self-acceptance in a way, because it's not a bad thing to be a certain way. It's not a bad thing to be high energy or low energy. It's not a bad thing to be quiet or very loud. It's just who you are. You know, it's just, this is part of you. This is what you want to do. And if you're happy with who you are, that tends to work out pretty well. It's only when we start getting unhappy with who we are, that's when we start to have those problems.
That's right. And actually, that's a topic right there I look forward to speaking about is, you know, the online world for young people in terms of handling the comments that you get from people. I mean, I've seen it all. The topics I talk about online, from sex, drugs, alcohol, you know, everything, bullying, mandates. I've seen it all in comment section, what people say about me. And you do have to just stay true to yourself and know who you are before you get online, if you are wanting to get up online. So I think that's a topic for us, definitely we should attack in the future.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think it's so important. I think a lot about that these days, particularly with stuff online. But there's definitely a topic for the future. So I think I might give myself a little bit of an intro then.
Yeah, that's right, your turn.
Cool. So I'm Nathan. I'm at the moment, so I've got my own coaching business, as you know, Christy. But prior to that, you know, I come from hospitality background. I was never really someone that kind of had success on my mind when I was younger. I was very much just kind of going through life, going through the motions. I got into hospitality when I was like starting at McDonald's and doing that type of hospitality lifestyle. And it was in probably my late teens and early 20s when I started to kind of go out and party and do that whole scene for a long time. And part of my inspiration for traveling to beginning with, like, because I'm over in Ireland at the moment, was to go see the super clubs that I hear so much about in the UK and over in London, and see the big DJs, which I really followed. But I was never really, I was more interested and concerned about going out on the weekends and partying and just staying up all night. And that was even when I met you and I was working at the AIS. Like, I was working in a restaurant during the week full time, and then I'd come and work at the residence reception on the weekend. And there was times when I was like sleepless over the weekend. That was not a healthy lifestyle I was living. And I was thinking that's actually a topic that we have to get into at some stage, because I think it'd be really good to talk more about our own struggles with like drugs and partying and those type of things, because I've got my own story when it comes to stuff like that. But I just remember that time when I met you and I was working so much. My incentive for getting out of Australia for going and doing something was to get out of Canberra first, because Canberra is very quiet. But I also wanted to go and see Europe, and I wanted to experience that type of lifestyle over there as well. And so I lived over there for 5 years, 4.5, 5 years. That was here in Dublin. And that's where I met my wife. We stayed there for that long. And it was interesting because I was there essentially by myself for 3 years. Obviously, I was with my wife, Amy. And I was still living that same type of lifestyle. Not as much, though, because I didn't have as many friends. I have new friends come in when I met them over here. But what was really interesting was when we came back to Australia in 2009. And I've heard this story before from other people who had traveled, is when they come back to where they left from, everyone is different. Well, it seems like everyone is different, but really you're the one who's different because you've gone and experienced a whole bunch of different things. And so I tried to get back into the same type of lifestyle, you know, going out and partying again, but it just wasn't the same because people had kind of grown up a little bit, and I'd grown up as well, but it was like I was trying to rekindle that same type of lifestyle. And then I went back into hospitality, but I got sick of working those long hours and split shifts, and I had Amy with me at the time as well. So I started to look for a more 9-to-5 type of job, which was out of the hospitality. But I didn't want to be stuck behind a desk somewhere all day. Like I'm not a public servant. That's not where, that just doesn't appeal to me. So I got a job as a coffee sales rep, and I was there for 3 years. But it was during that period when I started to kind of get into personal development, starting to realize there's probably a little bit more to life than than is already in front of me. And what I found really interesting was, I think it was after 2 years of working in the coffee roaster, was I was starting to get really down and really unhappy in life in general. Like we weren't making enough money. I was working a hospitality job on the side just to kind of make ends meet. But I was starting to get really down and quite depressed. And it got to the stage where like I literally broke down one day. I won't get into all that now, but that'll be a story for another time. But it was during that moment of crisis, if you will, where I started to kind of question life and question if this is what life was all about. Is this how I'm supposed to be feeling all the time? Am I ever going to be able to get ahead? And it was during that time where a voice kind of popped up inside my head and it said, no, there's more, go out and find it. And I'm paraphrasing because at the time it was my own voice just telling me to kind of get off my ass. But it was that moment which kind of started to lead me into understanding more about myself. So getting into personal development, getting into psychology, getting into understanding. And the biggest realization was that if anything's going to change, I have to change me first. And so I started to do that. I started to work on myself and just starting to change the way I think a little bit. And as soon as I started to do that, people and resources started to come into my life. My mentor, Vaughan, came into my life as well. He is the guy who got me into coaching to begin with because he'd been coaching before. He was a professional athlete as a ballroom dancer. And we started coaching together and we started a startup together as well in seminars, and we put together offline monthly masterminds and created online content for people to consume. But it was getting into that where coaching really just, it was the thing that I want to do. And even these days, so I've got my coaching business on the side. As you know, I still work full time as well. But coaching is always that thing that I'm working towards, like being able to, I guess, work with people, help people change the way they think is, I don't know, it just fills me full of so much juice and it just makes me feel very, I don't know, fulfilled on the inside. And I think that's part of what we're here to do and what we have to do moving forward, is that people really struggle with their own thoughts, struggle with what to do, we've all been there before, and I know myself, even today, still have things going on in my head which I still need to work through. But I think once we get on that path and we start realizing that we have the tools and the power to be able to do it, then we can make things happen. But that's essentially me.
You are a great coach, because I did do your coaching last year. You're a fantastic coach.
I'll stop.
You're so gifted and talented at it. So I'm happy everyone's going to be blessed by your coaching through these podcasts. In some way, it's just going to shine through, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I hope so. And I think that was what we're here to do as well. And for everyone who's listening, it's like what we want to do here is help you guys change the way that you think a little bit, see things in a different way, so you can start just creating better circumstances in your own life. And particularly these last couple of years have been hard for everyone. I've spoken to Christy about this a few times. I keep coming up with a question like, what can we do? Like, what can we actually do to help things? Can't necessarily change everything, because I think a lot of the problems are way too big for a couple of people to be able to make such a huge impact straight away. But I guess I wouldn't say always, but the thing I believe now, the thing that has become more relevant, is that if everyone starts to change the way they think and they can start to just be more happier and healthier in general in their own life, that's when we can create massive change. Because the more we can look inside ourselves and figure out what's going on inside us and heal and let that shit go, the better we can all be together. Because that's essentially the bane of a lot of the trouble that we have these days. That's it.
And also for me, doing these podcasts, it was important to, one, help others, two, to be a voice to be a voice for people, because I know a lot of people come to me and want me to speak on issues that they don't have the platform to speak about. So speaking on behalf of others. And then also another one I thought of is, from these podcasts, get people's feedback from what we're talking about. So listening to the comments of the public, the comment sections, even though people don't like them, thinking there's trolls. So there's a lot of good comments if you go into comment sections. If you can filter through the ones that are attacking your character, there's some great content. So I really want to hear what people have to say in the comment section of podcasts actually as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Feedback. And I think, I know a lot of people, when they try and kind of sell this type of stuff. So we've had this conversation before. I'm not against marketing, but I think there is such an ugly side to it where people are just trying to sell rather than serve, but they guise it under the term like that they're trying to serve. And so I find that rather than trying to tell people what they need to be doing, it's like that factor of listening to people, their genuine concerns, so we can tailor something around that. That's what really matters, because, and I think people need to realize it's like, your problems are your problems, yes, but they're not unique to you. There's people out there who have had the same type of problems, or if not very similar type of problems, years in the past, and will continue to have these problems moving forward with different people, which means that there's a common solution to all the problems which are out there. And the solution is, I personally think, it's always inside first. We don't have to seek external resources. That type of stuff helps, but it's not like a particular course is going to solve all of our problems, or I have to watch this particular video, or even have to listen to this particular podcast. That stuff does help, but we have to understand it's the journey in is always going to be the most important journey before anything else, and we don't need anything else. I was actually chatting to my coach Sharon just the other day about a few of my own challenges I'm going through, and she looked behind me there because I was talking about how I feel like a little bit maybe disconnected, or I'm like devolving because I haven't really been getting into too much study recently.
I like that.
Yeah, devolving, right?
Devolving.
And she made me look behind me, and she's like, "You've got all those courses up there at the moment. You know, you don't need anything else. Get back into those ones because that's the stuff you already know. But it's just time to get back into it and get back into the flow of it." But I find a lot of the time people start thinking about, well, what else do I need, rather than realizing that they've got everything that they need already.
I agree.
So, yeah, that's essentially us. What other type of topics did you have in mind of things that you'd like to talk about moving forward? Actually, I'll tell you what, before you answer, there's a couple of things which popped into my mind, which I wanted to share with you. I think one of them would be, as I mentioned before, talking about our own experiences with, obviously, like drugs and alcohol and that lifestyle, because I noticed that one of the things that people don't really talk too much about is that aspect of their life, particularly when they're trying to put themselves maybe on a bit of a pedestal, or they're trying to sell a product, or they're out there, they're just talking about, they're just talking about like, this is how successful I am now, or this is where I am now. And there is that part of like, yeah, you have to sell your story first. But I think it's important to realize that me, you, anyone who's listening, we're just people, and we're just kind of going through our own lives. We've got our own challenges. They're not always going to be unique to us, but we've had a life prior to what we're doing now, and it's because of that life that we're able to do what we're doing now. And the one thing I've actually struggled to talk in detail about is my own experience there as well, and because of my own fear of being judged, or maybe people won't be interested in working with me or something like that. And so that kind of popped up in my mind, and I think for me, now's the time, well, not right now, but when we do a podcast around it, that would be the time for me to be able to share that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. I'm the opposite. I'm so candid. It's like I have to learn to not say things. Well, my son, he's a teenager, so I definitely got to, I'd love to talk about some subjects, but that might have to wait till he's older. But definitely there's nothing off limits with me. I've always, my sisters know me as unapologetic. So I've always been keeping it real. Like, if you don't like it, bad luck. It's your problem, not mine. Since I've become a Christian, I'm definitely more empathetic to my communication, and not just saying whatever I want and bad luck everyone. So that was wisdom that came later in life, just be mindful, even though I love to share authentically. But for me, topics is going to be, like I was thinking today, I was like the topics that counselors, psychologists, pastors and priests, like if you think of when you go to a pastor for help at a church, or you go to a counselor, like those are the topics like trauma, hardship, adversity, basically any topic where people are suffering. I love those topics, and the hardest topics, so those topics that people don't want to talk about for fear of being judged. And so they're gonna, like being unvaccinated, like I was last year, getting trolled for that, or talking about mandates, you get trolled. Okay, another one, put it in the box there. Talking about drugs, people are going to judge you, which they did in comment sections, because I've done drugs before, so I put that in the comments. So there's definitely those topics where you're going to get trolled. I would like to go towards them. And then the topics where people are absolutely suffering, if we can share something that might help them from our own experience, and it's just sharing. It's not like we're telling people things, advice. You're just sharing how we overcame things. I think then this will be really meaningful work for me, these podcasts.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. I was listening to Jordan Peterson last night. He's incredible. He's so good. Particularly these days as well. Like because he's gone through some hardship over these last few years with his family, but with like the flack he gets from everyone else just for sharing his opinions. And I just love it because he backs it all up. He backs up everything he says. But one thing he was talking about is that one of the best things you can ever do is just speak your truth. Like, don't lie, and just speak your thoughts and share who you are. And a lot of the time, that truth is going to be harsh, but it's only harsh because it's true. You know, and this is where I know I struggle. I know a lot of other people struggle. They do have that fear of resentment, fear of being judged, fear of hurting someone. But sometimes people may need to be hurt in order for them to understand a truth. And I know, like, even myself and my wife, we share a lot. And, you know, sometimes it's just like, really? Another thing we have to work through? And like with inside ourselves, it's like, oh, how much more is there? But we all know, like, we've got 30, 40 odd years of stuff that we have to work through. So there's always going to be something else which is like going to contribute to our growth. But the more we can actually get to that truth, get to those hard things, get to the stuff that we can hopefully speak truthfully about from within inside ourselves, the easier it becomes for other people to be able to start to do the same thing, you know, because the truth does hurt and it can get emotional, and it can really hit that thing inside you where it's just like, you know, I didn't want to shine light there, but now that I have shine light there, I know I can heal from it, you know. And I think that's it. It's that, yeah, it's that kind of fear of going to the place where you really don't want to go to. One of the things I share with as many people who are interested, like my coaching clients in particular and a few of my friends, is that, like, your unconscious mind knows when you're able to handle something, whatever it may be, and it will smack you in the face with something when you're least expecting it. And it's like, I give an example, you ever like washing the dishes or something, not really thinking about anything, and suddenly like flashback from the past, a really negative one kind of hits you and you might get emotional. You're like, where the fuck did that come from? Like, what? I'm not thinking about that now. That's partly because you're like, your unconscious mind is like, here, you can sort this out, or here's something that you need to heal from, or a thought will come into mind, and it might be a negative thought about yourself, but that's like, you have to say thank you to your unconscious mind for bringing that to your attention and say, I don't need to feel bad about it, but there's something I need to heal here. There's something I need to learn. And I think the more that we can try to help people do that and realize that that's actually a good thing that's going to contribute to their overall mental health, I think that's like a job well done.
Yeah, definitely. Mental health's a huge one. Mental health management, I love that topic. Yeah, it's so important. So important.
Yeah, it is.
Teaching the next generation.
Yeah. And I think that's part of one of the problems in society is that we're really not taught to kind of work through those things or handle that. It's just like you can bury it down quite easily. And there's a lot of resources out there, but it's like taking that step to do something about it, which is always going to be the hardest. Yeah,
and for me it was a humbling experience to ask for help, or to just admit you don't have your shit together and you need help. Because in my 20s it was all about I'm fine, I'm good, and you know, this overconfident fake, you know, it was just fake. I was really underneath just a mess.
Yeah.
So it's just saying I'm a mess and that's it, and then the like you said, the resources come, the help comes, but I think it comes from a humble place where you have to ask for help, and then everything gets fixed from there.
Yeah, it does, and it's hard to do. But that's it. It's that. Yeah, I'm fine. How are you? I'm not bad. It's like, really? Yeah, and that's automatically a dead giveaway. And I do that myself. So when someone asks, it's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Even though on that day I might not be fine. I might be actually crumbling a little bit. But it's like, yeah, I'm fine. And that's just like, well, I don't really want to talk about it. I don't want to deal with it. I just want to push it aside. I want to share it with you. And look, not every time is going to be the time for it. But you know, it's a good time to start understanding that when you do those things, like watch your words and watch what thoughts come up, because if you're realizing that you're doing that on a consistent basis, then there's probably something there that needs to be sorted out because you're kind of deflecting a little bit. But I tell you what, when I was in my 20s, I had no idea about that stuff. No idea. I look back on it now because I'm always like, there's a reason why you do everything, right? There's a reason why you take every action. So I look back on those kind of partying days where I was like sleepless and going out and really not looking after myself. And it's like, what's the reason for that? Well, I was trying to deal with life. You know, I was bearing a lot of my own insecurities, and I was dealing with other things which are happening with my life at the time as well. And as much as I was like, yeah, I was just having a good time and enjoying it, and I was, looking back on it now, it's like, yeah, well, there's a reason why you're out there doing it and not out there like studying or learning something new or striving for something a little bit more.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. I was exactly the same. I just wanted to have fun, to be honest. I started to have fun, but then I was also covering trauma. And so trauma would happen, I didn't want to deal with it. So all this trauma was just sitting there, you know, just building. It was just gaining more because I didn't want to deal with it. So at 30, all it started bubbling up and had to start, well, it was a choice to deal with. Am I going to heal this trauma? Am I going to go towards it? Am I going to get counseling? And you choose to either face it and heal from it, or you just keep pushing it to the side, and then it keeps impacting you and manifesting. It can be a blind spot. You don't even realize. So I'm so thankful I did the hard yards of walking through all that trauma. One by one. And like you said, it's a process. I know my mentors in their 70s and said, like, it's never ending. They're still healing in their 70s. So I said, oh, what? I said, this isn't going to end. I was like, no. I was trying to do it as fast as I can, just get it over and done with God. Let's just do it. But I realized it doesn't work like that. It's ongoing. And that's it.
Yeah. If you really want to start getting kind of metaphysical into it, like sometimes they talk about even like past lives and things like that, which you're carrying around with you. But that's definitely a topic for another conversation, for sure. So with that, though, I think it's probably a good time, because we did speak about this before. You know, the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, have been hard for pretty much everyone in some type of way, some more than others. And recently you started a challenge, right? Where it's like the Get Out of COVID Funk challenge. It's time to get on with things. And look, the world is opening up again. It's not ever going to be the normal that we thought of that it was before, and there's definitely things on the horizon, but now is a time to actually start getting back into some type of swing of things. And I thought that was an incredible idea of you putting that together. That's a very cool challenge. I think a lot of people need that right now. So what I want to do before we finish up, I thought it'd be a good idea if we just have maybe a couple of ideas that we could put out there for people to start implementing today, which are quite easy, quite small, baby steps to start getting back out of that COVID funk and start kind of taking charge of their own life again.
Yeah, that's definitely. Yep, let's do it.
Cool. Well, I like to keep it nice and easy, and I think the first step with a lot of things is maybe a little bit of planning. It's like, and not even detailed planning. This is one of the things which I find works for some, but not works for others. Like, it's good to have a plan. Some people are way more detailed. Me, I'm not a details person. I'm a bigger picture type of person. So it's like, this is what I want to do. I'll figure things out along the way. If I set up a detailed, proper plan and something doesn't work, then it kind of takes me off track. So I think it's important to kind of realize to start off with, do what works for you, for everyone who's listening, for whatever works for you, just do that. But the first step I always think is just have a little bit of a plan. It's like, what do you want in the next 6 to 12 months? Keep it nice and light. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I want $1 million business. Okay, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, because there's a lot of things that need to happen first. But I think a good question is, well, what do I want in the next 6 to 12 months? So now that we've kind of gotten through the pandemic, now that everything's has a little bit more of a sense of normality, it's probably the best way to put it. What do I want? What do I want in the next 6 to 12 months? I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. It's getting people focused on what's good and what can be, and creating the future that they want, rather than thinking of the past or sitting on what's going wrong today. I think that's a great first step. Yeah,
and I think that's a really good point, because it can be really easy to get caught up with what has happened already. And there's a lot of things we can get caught up with of what has happened in the last couple of years. So let's try and keep things focused on more towards like the future and what you actually want. And I think the next step after that is always just take like one small step towards it. It might be getting back into the gym again, or getting my health back on track. It might be, now's the time to actually look at starting that business, or now's the time to ramp up my business, or something like that. Maybe it's time for a promotion, or whatever it may be. Maybe it's just the goal is, I didn't spend enough quality time with my family because I was too worried and concerned about what was happening, or there was too much maybe arguing or whatever it may be because of circumstances. But it could be something as simple as that. So it's like, well, for the next 12 months, I just want to spend more time with my family, quality time. So what's one small step that we can take towards that? What was the type of things that you set for like your first day in the challenge, or your first part of the challenge?
Buddies, making sure we had buddies.
That's a good one.
The main thing moving out or trying to snap out of any funk or anything, if you're in a rut or in a black hole, is to have someone there to hold your hand, to walk through you and get out of the hole. So having a buddy which is my sister and my son. So I've actually got two. And so the three of us, I mean, especially my sister, she's 1 year younger than me, and so we talk every day, and we're just so happy that we started this, because we're on this journey now of more organic eating and being healthier and fitness. So the first thing was, okay, everyone's got to have a buddy to help you to get out of the funk. And then
that's actually a good one, yeah. That's really good. So you need that accountability, right? You You need someone because, like, it's to use the example of like getting your fitness back on track, like going back to the gym. If you don't have someone there who's going to ask you if you went, then you're more inclined not to go. So like if you wake up in the morning, it's like, yeah, I want to go to the gym this morning at 5 o'clock. Wake up at 5 and you're like, nah, I'm going back to sleep. You know, you need someone who's going to say at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, say, hey, did you go? Right? It's just kind of give you that little bit of accountability, and in a good way as well, because it's not about name and shame if it doesn't happen. It's just more about, all right, if you didn't go, what do we need to do to make sure that you go tomorrow? All right, so you can feel a bit better. But I think that buddy is a great place to start.
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example too. So I did a 5-day water fast. I just finished yesterday. And I did one last month with Stephen, same guy, friend of mine. And he did it and I only went to 3 or 4 days. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like I didn't do it. I was so disappointed in myself. And because it's accountability, it's integrity. I could have said, I did it, but I can't. I was like, no, I just said, sorry, I bailed. So that's why this time he was there and I said, no, this time I'm going to do it. Make sure I do my 5 days. And so that's where it was great to have him as a buddy in the 5-day water fast, which is like went into the 8-week COVID Funk Challenge to help push me through this time. So thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, good work. But I think, look, you still did 3 to 4 days, you know, despite what has happened in the past. And I think that's a big component of it. It's like giving yourself that credit for the things that you do, that you actually do. You know, sometimes it's like, oh, I want to read a book a month. All I could do is like 1 page. That's great. That's more than you did last month. So I think that gets really important as well, because I know myself, I struggle with that. It's like give myself that bit of credit that I actually deserve. And I think a lot of people struggle with that as well. It's like, you know, you are doing a lot of great things on a day-to-day basis, you know, even if it is just keeping your kids alive for another day. That's pretty incredible, right? Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have
agree,
just,
right?
yeah. What's that?
Yeah, I agree exactly. Focusing on what matters.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, you did 3 or 4 days, not 5. Okay, but you still did 3 or 4 days. When was the last time a lot of other people like fasted for that long, you know, did a water fast for that long, which I think is incredible. So I think that's probably a really good place to kind of finish up on. It's like to get out of this COVID funk, to kind of get yourself back moving, a bit more motivation. It's like set yourself a bit of an idea about what you want to do. Like 12 months time, 6 months time, what's something that you just want to start working towards? Start taking one small step today and continue doing one small step every day. It doesn't matter how small it is. All it matters is that you're doing something. And then to finish it off, it's like make sure that you are giving yourself that little bit of credit that you deserve for doing the thing that's ultimately going to work you towards what you're trying to achieve in the next 12 months. And it doesn't have to be huge. It's like pat on the back, say, awesome work. It's more than I've done in the last couple of years or the last month or whatever it may be. And it's those small incremental steps which will start working up towards much bigger things later on, but it has to start here and we have to realize the good stuff that we're doing as we go. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate you checking out our first podcast. Stay tuned each week. We're just working out which specific days we're going to be releasing it, but we'll be doing one of these podcasts every single week. If you want to reach out to myself and Christy, there will be some details, I guess, below this, wherever we end up posting it, YouTube and a few other places. So contact details will be there. And if you are really struggling with anything, absolutely reach out to us. Or if you've got any ideas for topics which you are struggling with or any challenges you have, let us know and we'll put together a specific podcast essentially just for you.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Well said.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone. See? Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks, guys. See, we're totally aligned there.
That's it. We're ready to rock and roll, Nathan.
All right, awesome. Well, Christy, thank you so much. Looking forward to chatting with you again, and we'll chat soon.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Thanks, Nathan. Bye.
See ya.